Before it became the most powerful city in Japan, before it was called Tokyo, this land was nothing more than a quiet fishing village, surrounded by swamps, disease, and political danger. Floods were common, malaria spread through stagnant water, and politically the area was irrelevant. Yet from this unlikely ground rose a city so powerful that it controlled emperors, ruled samurai, and reshaped Japan for over 250 years. This is the story of how Edo was born, and how it quietly became the heart of an empire. This is Untold Dynasties, where we uncover the forgotten origins of empires, the hidden decisions behind power, and the stories history never expected to matter. Today we explore how Edo, modern-day Tokyo, rose from obscurity and became the nerve center of Japan's longest-lasting regime. In this video, you will discover why Edo was once considered a terrible place to rule from, how one man transformed it into the seat of power, and how this city controlled Japan without ever overthrowing the emperor. By the end, you'll understand why Tokyo's rise was not inevitable, but engineered through patience, fear, and absolute control. Before we proceed, note that this video is created for educational and historical storytelling purposes only. Events are presented using widely accepted historical sources, with narrative interpretation used to enhance understanding. To understand Edo, we must first understand Japan before Edo. For centuries, Japan was fractured by war. Real authority did not belong to the emperor in Kyoto, but to regional warlords known as daimyo. Each ruled their own territory, commanded their own armies, and pursued their own ambitions. This era was known as the Sengoku period, an age of near-constant conflict, shifting alliances, and betrayal. Castles rose across the countryside, villages burned, and loyalty changed with the tides of war. In this violent world, Edo barely mattered. It sat on Japan's eastern edge, distant from the centers of culture and power. Its land was marshy and unstable. Trade was limited. Few saw any future in it. No one believed Edo would ever shape Japan's destiny. No one, except Tokugawa Ieyasu. Tokugawa Ieyasu was not the most aggressive warlord of his time. He was not the flashiest nor the most feared, but he was observant, cautious, patient. Ieyasu understood something his rivals did not. Japan did not need endless conquest. It needed control. Surrounded by powerful enemies, Ieyasu needed a base that offered three things: defense, distance, and leverage. Edo offered all three. Its swamps and rivers made large-scale invasions difficult. Its coastal access allowed supplies and communication by sea, and its distance from Kyoto kept Ieyasu away from imperial politics, while still close enough to influence them. This distance was not weakness, it was insulation. Tokugawa Ieyasu was not interested in overthrowing the emperor. That would invite endless rebellion. Instead, he planned something far more effective. After his decisive victory at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, Ieyasu emerged as the dominant power in Japan. 3 years later, in 1603, he was appointed shogun. The emperor remained in Kyoto, but real power moved east. Edo became the de facto capital of Japan, not by tradition, not by ceremony, but by calculated design. Almost immediately, Edo was transformed. Swamps were drained, land was reclaimed from the sea, entire hills were cut down and moved to fill low ground. Canals were carved through the city, allowing goods and people to flow efficiently. Roads were extended outward, connecting Edo to every major region of Japan. At the heart of the city rose Edo Castle. It was not just a residence, it was a statement. Massive stone walls, multiple defensive rings, moats that stretched for kilometers. Edo Castle became one of the largest fortresses in the world, a symbol of permanence in a country exhausted by war. As the castle expanded, people followed. Samurai were ordered to live near their lords. Daimyo were required to maintain large residences in Edo. What emerged was not simply a capital, but a designed society. The castle's vast moats and stone walls were only the visible core of a much larger system. Around it spread a carefully ordered city, divided by rank, duty, and loyalty. Neighborhoods were assigned, streets were planned. Distance from the castle was never accidental. Samurai quarters formed disciplined rings around Edo Castle. ensuring that every lord's retainers were close at hand and under constant observation. These warriors were no longer roaming men of the battlefield. They became residents of bureaucracy tied to stipends, schedules, and supervision. The daimyo estates were even more telling. Each was a miniature domain, complete with gates, guards, and hundreds of attendants. Yet these grand compounds were not expressions of independence. They were anchors. Maintaining them required enormous wealth. Staff had to be paid, buildings repaired, ceremonies upheld. The longer a daimyo remained in Edo, the deeper his resources were absorbed by the city. And that was the point. By concentrating Japan's military elite around Edo Castle, the Tokugawa Shogunate eliminated distance, the one thing rebellion requires. Power was centralized, watched, and quietly neutralized. No battles were fought, no sieges were needed. The city itself became the fortress. Artisans, builders, and laborers flooded in to meet demand. Merchants followed opportunity. Within decades, Edo exploded in size. By the early 18th century, Edo was no ordinary capital. It was a city engineered for dominance. With a population surpassing 1 million, Edo rivaled London and Beijing, not as a commercial hub or imperial court, but as the administrative heart of an unprecedented system of control. Samurai, officials, artisans, and merchants were drawn into its orbit, all ultimately serving one purpose: the stability of Tokugawa rule. Yet Edo's true power was not measured in streets or census records. It was measured in obedience. At the core of this system stood Sankin Kotai, alternate attendance, one of the most sophisticated political restraints in pre-modern history. Under this mandate, every daimyo, the regional lords of Japan, was required to divide his life in two. 1 year ruling his own domain, the next residing in Edo under the direct gaze of the shogun. But the true brilliance and cruelty of the system lay elsewhere. A daimyo's wife and heirs were never permitted to leave Edo. They lived in luxurious estates near Edo Castle, surrounded by ceremony, privilege, and constant surveillance. Formally, they were guests of the shogunate. In reality, they were living guarantees of submission. This was not diplomacy, it was leverage. Any thought of rebellion carried an immediate cost, not just political ruin, but the lives and futures of one's own family. The financial consequences were equally devastating. Maintaining 2 lavish households was ruinously expensive. Annual processions between domain and capital required hundreds of retainers, ornate clothing, gifts, and weeks of travel along the great highways of Japan. These journeys were deliberately ritualized in public, power made visible, and wealth steadily drained. The result was calculated exhaustion. Daimyo grew poor, domains sank deeper into debt, private armies shrank, while the shogunate remained untouched. Edo, meanwhile, flourished. The city became a gravitational center where loyalty was rehearsed, monitored, and enforced year after year. No chains were visible, no blood was spilled, and yet for over 2 centuries, no daimyo dared to rise. In Edo, control did not require force, it required proximity, and Sankin Kotai ensured that power never strayed far from the shogun's reach. Edo became more than a city, it became a mechanism, a beautifully ordered cage for Japan's ruling elite. And it worked. For over 250 years, Japan experienced relative peace. Wars ended, castles were regulated, weapons were controlled. But this peace came at a cost. Edo became a city of strict rules and rigid hierarchy. Samurai, once warriors, became bureaucrats, bound by honor, but increasingly disconnected from war. Merchants, officially at the bottom of society, quietly accumulated wealth through trade and finance. Culture flourished. Kabuki theater filled the streets with color and drama. Ukiyo-e woodblock prints captured fleeting pleasures. Literature, poetry, and philosophy thrived among commoners. Edo became vibrant, but tightly controlled. Fire was a constant threat. Earthquakes reshaped neighborhoods overnight, and the population lived under constant regulation. Beneath the order, pressure grew. Edo was overcrowded. Its system was inflexible. Its rulers believed stability was permanent. But the world beyond Japan was changing. As we move closer to Edo's transformation into modern Tokyo, consider this question. Was Edo a symbol of peace, or a warning about power held too tightly for too long? Because what came next would test everything Tokugawa Ieyasu built. In the 19th century, foreign ships arrived off Japan's coast. The outside world demanded trade. The Tokugawa system, designed for isolation, could not adapt fast enough. Authority fractured, loyalty shifted, the shogunate weakened. In 1868, the Tokugawa regime collapsed. The emperor was restored to power, and Edo was renamed Tokyo, the eastern capital. But Edo never truly disappeared. Its systems of organization, discipline, and urban planning became the foundation of modern Japan. The lesson of Edo is clear. True power does not always sit on a throne. It lives in systems, in geography, in patience and design. Tokugawa Ieyasu did not conquer Japan loudly. He engineered it. And when systems refuse to evolve, they eventually break. Today, Tokyo stands as one of the most influential cities in human history. Yet beneath its skyscrapers and neon lights lies Edo's blueprint: order, discipline, and quiet authority. If this story changed how you see Tokyo, support Untold Dynasties by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who loves history beyond textbooks. Your task is simple. Ask yourself, was Edo's peace worth the cost of freedom? Tell us your answer in the comments. And this is only the beginning. In upcoming Untold Dynasties episodes, we'll explore the fall of the Tokugawa Shogunate, Japan's collision with the modern world, and the dynasties history tried to forget. Stay with us, because the most dangerous stories are the ones never fully told.